Aha! Alright, Sansa VI, after her high-stakes flight from the Purple Wedding, you know what I mean? It's already got this catchy name spread around by legacy media, as it were. And our girl Sansa moves from the frying pan, aka Joffrey's dinner table of doom, to the fire, also known as Littlefinger's spider web of manipulation. How do you like that, huh? Dramatic intro. When last we saw her, she'd just been hauled aboard the Merlin King by Lord Creepy Uncle Baelish himself, in the flesh. And now, as the chapter opens, it's time for Sansa to face the grim reality. Freedom doesn't come without strings attached, especially when those strings are tangled up in Littlefinger's long game. Huh? How do you like my dramatic intro? So where is Sansa now? Still on that ship, sailing along the Blackwater, passing the eerie wreckage from the wreckages from the Battle of the Blackwater Bay. It's dark, cold, and unsettling, much like her new guardian, Littlefinger, who wastes no time showing Sansa how deep his claws run, casually revealing that Dontos was just a pawn in his game and that a bag of gold isn't as silent as 3 well-placed crossbow bolts. So there, R.I.P. Rest in peace, Sir Dontos. You died as you lived, drunk and tragically irrelevant. Sorry. Okay, now anyway, so, right, let's snap out of it. Welcome, dear listener, to the incoherent ramblings of an insane person online, me. We're reading George R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire, chapter by chapter, and right now we're about to sink our teeth into Sansa VI from A Storm of Swords, Book 3. Yeah, so you remember that in the previous Sansa POV, Dontos was unceremoniously whacked by this Sir Lothar Brune, Littlefinger's henchman, or free rider, shall we say. Now, we have encountered this guy before, to be sure, just mentioned as one of many faceless names of dudes, you know, taking part in tourneys and whatnot. And Sansa remarks that this fella is actually a knight, technically, because he was knighted for bravery, acts of valor, whatevs, in the Battle of the Blackwater. Although Sansa wastes no time informing us that he doesn't really look like a proper knight. He's supposed to look, what, with those, let me read you the quote, with those patched brown breeches and scuffed boots, or that cracked and water-stained leather jerkin. Because Sansa knows what a proper knight is supposed to look like. She got all that info from those chivalry stories she consumes, or used to consume, in spades, even though her conviction of what a real knight is supposed to be like has been eroding every day since she left Winterfell. And George, you know, enjoys dismantling all of these ideals in the most sadistic way. But anyway, so the reason I'm now focusing on this Lothar Brune guy is because, yes, all right, he might just be yet another example of George R. R. Martin dumping a whole bunch of character names in one book chapter for future use, so that 1 or 2 books later, when he's going to be in need of new characters to do stuff, sure enough, he just goes back and fishes those same names again. Case in point, all those, random fellas from Dorne. But, okay, a little oversimplified, but there you go. However, in this case, our George puts a new, tragically ironic spin to this practice, because by having Lothar Brune kill Dontos, he basically closes a story arc that started in A Clash of Kings. Because, I don't know if you remember, but Lothar was in the lists for the tourney on King Joffrey's name day. However, since his opponent, who was none other than, pause for effect, Sir Dontos Hollard. Because Dontos was too drunk to ride his horse, their tilt was called off. Now, if the tilt hadn't been called off, chances are Dontos would have gotten himself killed, probably by simply falling off his horse and ending up impaled by Lothar Brun's spear or something. So you see, Dontos's date with death at the hand of Lothar Brun was only postponed in A Clash of Kings, and then, sort of like resolved now. Set up, pay off. Ha! How about that, huh? And I'll tell you what, we can dig even deeper than that, and none of the following is on the page, but it's entirely possible that after this cancelled tilt between Lothar and Dontos, Peter Baelish must have made a mental note, as in, this fool Dontos may yet serve a purpose, twirling his evil moustache, because there's no way Littlefinger does not twirl his evil moustache. Come on. If there's ever been a character that you can't help but picturing doing exactly that, that's Lord Peter Baelish. Anyway, so yeah, was that accurate? The twirly, the mustache twirly thing? Yes, okay. I don't know if I got the voice right. This fool may yet serve a purpose. If he actually did sound like that, it'd lose a lot of credibility. We imagine him as suave when he talks, like it's the kind of tone of voice that helps him, make friends. I bet he can tell jokes and things like that. He has to be a popular guy. You don't have to immediately figure him out as an evil, scheming bastard. Otherwise, people would be wary of him. Anyway, right. So if anyone approached Dontos, what I'm saying is, boy, do I digress today. If anyone approached Dontos with a recruitment proposition, like, hey, pss, pss, hey, want to make some extra bucks? Yeah, it can only have been the very same Lothar Brun. And that must have happened. When do you think that happened? Because let's take a look at Littlefinger's timeline, because that's always fun. It's one thing I would wholeheartedly recommend to any first-time reader. Always keep track of where Littlefinger is, or where everyone thinks he is, at any given moment throughout these books, because he travels. Sometimes he disappears for like an entire book, only to reappear and make you go, "Oh, that's right, that guy exists. Where was he?" And now you have to flip back. So it's always good to remind yourself. And the note. Okay, Dontos slipped the first note to Sansa. The one that says, "Come to the Godswood tonight if you want to go home." And that happened in Sansa 2 from A Clash of Kings, which means, my dear listener, that the plan of whisking Sansa away from King's Landing was hatched by Peter way, way before he even volunteered to travel to meet the Tyrell Corporation, win them over to the crown after Renly Baratheon's death, because Littlefinger volunteered for that mission, for that diplomatic mission to Bitterbridge, to have a chat with Mace Tyrell and propose the marriage between Joffrey and Marjorie. Yeah, that happened 18 chapters later, 18 chapters after the note, "Come to the Godswood." It happened in Tyrion 8, Clash of Kings. So it's only as an afterthought, after Littlefinger did all that plotting with Olenna, and then finally came back to King's Landing, that he thought, oh yeah, let's also use poor Sansa as a prop to assassinate Joffrey. That must have been an afterthought. By the way, I do hope you have read this chapter, because I'm about to spoil the hell out of it, as I've already begun. I gotta get my past participles right. By the way, yeah, no, okay, no, right. Anyway, so yeah, spoiling. I should also give you my disclaimer with spoilers and all that. I will spoil the hell out of this chapter, but no further than that. I should also point out. I mean, there will be no spoilers past the chapter I'm covering right now. I'll be looking back and not ahead. Oh, anyway, so to summarize, if the plan to use Sansa as a tool to poison Joffrey came as an afterthought, the original plan conceived by Peter Baelish must have been, all along, to travel to the Vale and take Sansa with him, incognito, obviously, in that famous ship of his, you know, because here's the quote from Dantos, remember, the ship was already part of the whole thing, because he said, Dantos said, when he first met Sansa in the Godswood, he said, I've spoken to a certain man I know, a good friend to me. Yeah, right. And you, to a good friend to me and you, my lady. And he will hire a swift ship. Okay, no, there wasn't any specific ship in the plan, but there was a ship at some point. He will hire a swift ship to take us to safety when the time is right. And here Dantos was only 50% correct. He was not, which, by the way, no, he never intended to leave on the ship, on that same ship, because he had a career as a court jester, and we do remember that at some point, when Dantos delivers Sansa to Littlefinger, he says, "Oh, I gotta get back, man, because they'll be wondering about me as well." Where is Dantos? Where is Dantos? Where is Dantos when you need a good laugh? Because right now we could all use a good laugh. After a teenage king has been poisoned to death. Squirting purple blood out of his mouth. Yeah, come on, Dantos. Where is Dantos to tell us a joke? I don't know. But he did say that, so it was never his intention to leave on that ship. Or maybe it was, and he changed his mind. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, Dantos said that. This friend of mine, he will hire a swift ship to take us back to safety when the time is right. And he said that in Sansa 4 from A Clash of Kings. Because let's not forget that the plan of sending Littlefinger to the Vale, meet up with Lysa Tully and gain House Arryn's loyalty for the crown, was an old plan, actually. Tyrion, as act in hand, suggested it as far back as Tyrion 4 in A Clash of Kings. It was just because of Renly's death that everything changed. The plan, the Vale, the Eyrie plan was postponed in favor of this other plan of sending Littlefinger to Bitterbridge and negotiate with the Tyrells. Lots of backpacking for Littlefinger, huh? It was kind of like a gap year for Littlefinger. And then, of course, as we now know, after Peter Baelish returned to King's Landing, the long overdue plan to send him to the Vale was resumed, and ostensibly Lord Baelish hopped on board of his cozy little ship and sailed to the Vale. But not before informing Tywin of the Tyrells' plan to whisk Sansa to Highgarden and marry her to Willas, as he learned from Dantos, remember? Which would have he had to tell Tywin about it, because that would have completely ruined his own plot. Now, of course, as I said, he ostensibly hopped on board of his cozy little ship and sailed to the Vale. But we know today that he didn't. He actually remained docked near the city all the way from Tyrion 3, in the same book, until today. Wow. And we're all caught up completely in under a quarter of an hour. Are you impressed? All right, so yeah, the chapter opens with Sansa on board of the Merlin King, still mostly seasick, as she's been for a number of days in this voyage. Lothar Brune here is helping her up the ladder to the forecastle. forecastle. I'm reliably informed that forecastle should actually be pronounced forecastle. Why, by the way? No, I mean not why the pronunciation. I mean why is Lothar Brun helping? It's all on the page. Why is he helping her up the ladder to the forecastle? Is she supposed to like spot land or something? Why? It doesn't look all that safe. I mean, George R. R. Martin casually informs us that the recent storms have swept two experienced men overboard. That's right. There's no such thing as smooth sailing in these books. So yeah. So why is Lothar Brun just helping Sansa up the ladder? Yeah, you go, child. Up you go to the old forecastle. In these treacherous waters that have already claimed the lives of two experienced men. Can you see something? Yeah, sorry, I would go myself, but I'm not comfortable with heights. Off you go, Sansa. I don't know why, but that's how the chapter opens. Meanwhile, Sansa has all the time to think back of all the nightmares she's been having, as well she might. She still has PTSD, understandably. Nightmares of Joffrey dying, even nightmares about of Tyrion sometimes. And she's also thinking back of what Peter Baelish has been telling her about Tyrion, because Littlefinger does a great job of gaslighting Sansa and planting the notion in her head that leaving King's Landing, with him was the best thing that ever happened to her. Because at some point in their voyage, he went, aha, well, you say that Tyrion is innocent of Joffrey's death. Ha ha, that may be so. And in fact it is. But he's far from innocent per se. And indeed, philosophically speaking, to what degree can we say that any person is innocent? No, but what I'm driving at, this is still Littlefinger speaking. That he had a wife before you, but yeah, okay, so you knew that, yeah, but did you know that when he got bored with her, he gave her to her father's guardsmen? Which is a bit unfair, which is a bit like, this is a bit like saying, I don't know, something tragic, like, oh yeah, Sophie's Choice, yeah, great topic to dampen the mood, huh? It's like saying that in Sophie's Choice, Meryl Streep's character, whose name is, Sophie. Hello. Yeah, okay. It's like Sophie, at some point she just went, oh, you bloody kids, I swear I'm sick and tired of you going, are we there yet? I gotta pee, so help me God, if you don't stop. Oh, hello, kind stranger in uniform. Would you take one of these two kids off my back, if you don't mind? Oh, I don't know. It doesn't matter which one. I suppose this one? Yeah, I mean, okay, I realize I just spoiled Sophie's Choice for you, but which is probably the last thing you expected in a podcast dedicated to the Song of Ice and Fire. But trust me, the way I described it is not how it actually went down in the story. Yeah. Speaking of twists, this is where Littlefinger springs a little plot twist on Sansa. Guess what, Sansita? See these rugged cliffs here with no safe anchorage? Well, this is our actual destination. The Fingers. Fascinating name, huh? Yeah, something to do with their shape and number, you see. I picture something like the fjords in Norway when I think of the Fingers, but less green and more inhospitable. Kind of like the Sisters. The Sisters, those other isles. Anyway, I don't know why I brought them up. We won't encounter them until Dance with Dragons. See, Sansa thought they were headed to the White Harbor, which I guess would have made sense because White Harbor is now the largest unoccupied city in the north, unoccupied by various, Ironborn, Boltons, all sorts of unsavory characters. The Manderleys being bannermen to House Stark and all, so Sansa thought the Manderleys would shelter her for a while and then take it from there. But no, see here, Littlefinger does a little word game. He goes, "Ha ha! Did I say I was taking you home? Ha yeah, well I did, yeah, but I never said which home. Oh come!" And there it is, my ancestral home in the Fingers, desolate and miserable as it is. There you go. And this is where Sansa learns that with Winterfell gone and occupied, Bolton's, Ironborn, all that mess. The plan now is to sit tight in the Fingers for a couple of weeks and wait for Lady Lysa to turn up so she and Littlefinger can get married as per plan. So yeah, Sansa may not be going home to her mother. Duh, this mother is no longer walking, or is she? Shut up. Duh. But joining her mother's sister, I suppose, is as close as it gets. So what could possibly go wrong? And Sansa, you know what? Say what you want about her, but she's got an amazing survival adaptability. Every time she's informed, she can only have the second best choice. She's always like, meh, okay. Like, what? I can't marry Loras Tyrell, but I'll end up marrying his brother Willas. Oh, well, I'm sure I love this new arrangement. Or again, what? I can't go to Winterfell, but I'll end up living in the Vale. Oh, well, I'm sure the place will grow on me. Meh. Do you know what I mean? She always manages to somehow make the best of stuff. So it's at this point that Lothar and Oswell row them ashore, because there's no safe anchorage. Lothar, we've already talked about, but this Oswell, recapping from the previous Sansa POV during Sansa's escape with the drunken Dontos, once they finally reached the ground on the riverbank, a strange man was waiting in a boat, a skiff. We learned his name is Oswell because Dontos was so drunk he called him by his first name, forgetting he was not supposed to. No names in this SAS sort of style extraction operation type thing. And boy, did this Oswell look familiar. So they get so they're rowed ashore, and they get to Littlefinger's manor, Baelish Tower, the desolate one, greeted by a handful of stereotype servants. There's Kella, the jolly overweight girl who can't say no to men, and he pops one baby after another. She's holding yet another newborn baby in her arms. Father unknown. Ooh, well, search me if I know the name. She also takes care of the sheep. There you go. So you want some cheese, yogurt, milk? That's, Kella is the go-to person. 23 sheep in total. Then there's Grizzle, the thin, white-haired, no-nonsense lady, which you imagine with a wooden ladle in her hand, formerly Peter's wet nurse, now castellan of the household. Then you've got the aging captain of the guards, except that there are no guards, just dogs. And he's still going everywhere with a sword, as if he was expecting some foreign attack any minute. And then there's this steward called Unfriended. That would be a cool name. Unfred. He's all like, oh, good to see you again. I wish we'd known you were coming. Will you be staying long? Still, haha. Answer me this. What's brown and sounds like a bell? Dung. That's right. 5 points if you got that reference. As Eric Idle, Yeah, but dung. Because your favorite fuel is helping the fire going in the hearth as we speak. So, come in, grab a glass of the old vino and warm yourselves by the manure fire. What do you say? We can also whip up the local speciality seagull eggs, seaweed soup, and salt mutton, because sheep. This is probably as good time as any to inform you that these dialogues are slightly paraphrased, in case you didn't notice. Anyway, so Littlefinger sums up the place in one word: dreary. This is dreary. And we found out a little bit of this is where we find out a little bit of Peter Baelish's origin, because over the mantelpiece hangs a sword, broken of course, and an old shield whose paint is coming off, but the sigil on it is basically the head of the Titan of Bravos, because Peter's grandfather came to the continent from Bravos as a sellsword. We keep hearing about this Bravos. Sooner or later, we'll have to see it on the page, huh? Just saying. Anyway, so when Littlefinger's grandfather was knighted by this Lord Corbray, he took up that sigil, which Sansa, being this PR expert, she immediately compliments the sigil. Oh my God, yeah, he looks real fierce, doesn't he? But Littlefinger is all like, yeah, even too fierce if you ask me, for such an amiable fella like me. That's why I ditched it in favor of the that other sigil, of my own design, the Mockingbird. There, the history of House Baelish in one paragraph. Later, Littlefinger will tell us, well, of King's Landing, you will never see a quote-unquote bannerman for House Baelish, with a mockingbird sewn or pinned on their jackets. I couldn't come up with a medieval sort of garment on their jackets, but that doesn't mean they're not my men. Anyway, so casks of wine, Arbor Gold, are brought in. Yay, let's have a toast, Sansa. I told you I was going to cure your seasickness the only way I know how, with booze. Bottoms up. Clink, clink. So while all Sansa can do is cling to the hope that she won't throw up all over Littlefinger, who is now staring at Sansa in a weird, creepy way, interpreted by Sansa as amusement of sorts. Then orders are given to bring round a fruit basket, run a bubble bath, all for Sansa. At which point Peter tells her, okay, look, let's get our story straight, shall we? Because your Aunt Lysa arrives with her entourage, and you can't go around everywhere carrying the name Sansa Stark. You know what I mean? It's not safe. Which is kind of true, because Sansa is currently the most wanted girl in the Crown Lands and the North for different reasons. And the number of characters trying to track down her whereabouts is about to increase, but no spoilers. So yeah, you can't go everywhere carrying the name Sansa Stark for one reason. Varys has spies everywhere. So the minute one of Lysa's servants knows Sansa Stark is here, so will Varys. Which is interesting. Littlefinger doesn't trust the servants in Lysa Tully/Arryn's household. Does he trust his own? And think of the implications for whatever might be said aloud in future chapters, either here or in the Eyrie. Bear in mind that one of Varys' people, whenever someone speaks aloud in these next chapters, just bear in mind that one of Varys' people might be just within earshot. No spoilers, but let's put Let's put a pin on it. Anyway, so it's decided. The alibi will be that Sansa is not Sansa, but Peter's natural daughter. How'd you like that? Well, Sansa doesn't. Sansa doesn't like that one bit, because, well, I never. Me? A bastard? Surely we can come up with some great backstory for my character, like in a song, Couldn't I just be this amazing gal, like the true-born daughter of some super awesome knight in your service? Yeah, perhaps he died gallantly in the battle, and nah, mate. Littlefinger cuts her short, bursts that bubble. He goes, I never had a knight on my payroll, or a wife. Sorry, Sansa. Illegitimate daughter it is. Yeah. Your name will be Elaine, yeah? After mine own mother, which would kind of make sense if you were my daughter for real. So here Littlefinger comes up with an actual backstory for Elaine, which must have been concocted and rehearsed several times prior to this moment. Because if you think of how old this plan was, as I just explained, to whisk Sansa away from King's Landing, at least as old as the note Sansa got from Dontos, which we just reminded ourselves happened all the way back in Sansa II from A Clash of Kings. So the backstory is as follows. Let me read you the quote. Your mother was a gentlewoman of Bravos, there you go again, daughter of a merchant prince. Interesting. We met in Gulltown when I had charge of the port. More on that later. She died giving you birth and entrusted you to the faith, with her last breath, presumably. I have some devotional books you can look over, learn to quote from them. I bet he bought them just for that purpose. Learn to quote from these, religious literatures, sort of pamphlets and whatnot. Because you can always quote pious stuff, prayers and whatnot, to whoever tends to be a bit too, inquisitive. You'll bore the shit out of them, then see how quickly they'll find an excuse to leave you alone. Yeah. So anyway, at some point you changed your mind. This is still your backstory, Sansa. At some point you changed your mind about wanting to become a septa, and you wrote me a letter, and that's how I found out about your existence. And bada bing, bada boom, the rest is history. Not bad. It's kind of clever and plausible, So the food is brought in, and Sansa is all like, "Yeah, I suppose I can remember all that." I don't know if she sounds like that, but they kind of like playing a game, innit? Yeah, it's quite. Yeah, it's very clever. Yeah, your dad, Eddard, rest his soul. You must miss him, by the way. I guess he was a great dude. But hopeless at playing the game. I should know. It was a piece of cake for me to betray him, and that cost him his life. No, he doesn't. Okay, Littlefinger doesn't actually say that, but we do know that that's exactly what happened. But Sansa picks on that. She goes, "Oh, so I'm one of the pawns in your game, am I?" Yeah. It doesn't deny that. Peter doesn't deny that. Yeah, but don't let that depress you. You're in good company. Take Cersei. She thinks she's a player, but she's totally predictable. And her strengths are just her beauty and the fact that she was born into a powerful family, powerful and influential and rich family. All she craves is more power. But if she did get it, she would know what to do with it. Kind of like a dog chasing cars, in the words of the Joker. So you see, lesson number 1. Once you know what people are after, it becomes much easier for you to manipulate them. Oh, like how you manipulated Dontos to poison Joffrey. See, Sansa does have some bite here, but I guess this is a good point to pause for a bit and discuss a whole bunch of fan theories surrounding the Purple Wedding. Because does Littlefinger actually know that his plan worked out perfectly, if that was indeed his plan, to poison Joffrey? What if he actually intended what if he actually intended for Tyrion to be poisoned? After all, when you think about it, a widowed Sansa, that is without a husband with a potential claim on Winterfell, would be a lot more useful to Littlefinger, especially considering that, as he's just told us, he's about to marry into Sansa's extended family. And again, what if it was the pie and not the wine that was poisoned? That would make more sense. And also, what kind of because Joffrey did help himself from the pie from a plate which I believe was Tyrion's. Don't quote me on that. I'll have to go back and read it. And also, what kind of a clunky plan was this? Okay, listen up. If the official version of events is to be believed, anything and everything could have gone wrong. I mean, give the poisoned amethysts to Dontos, drunken fool who could have lost them any day of the week, so that he delivers them to Sansa with the recommendation to wear them at Joffrey's wedding, and Sansa could have simply forgotten to wear them or decided against wearing them at the last minute. And then instruct Lady Olenna, I'm going to pronounce it Russian here, Olenna Tyrell, to pluck one of the amethysts, which I guess must have all been poisoned, because what if she'd plucked the wrong one, from Sansa's hairband, and casually drop it into Joffrey's chalice when no one is looking? What kind of a plan is this? I mean, if Olenna, I'm sticking to my Olenna, was expected to ultimately get her hands dirty, yeah, well, then why not simply give her the amethysts? It's not like the bouncers were going to search her, is it? No? I mean, okay, all of this, by the way, I can't take credit for any of these alternative theories or thoughts, shall we call them, questioning the official version of events. You've all seen Preston Jacobs' video, A Song of Ice and Fire, The Purple Wedding. If you haven't, I recommend you watch it. No, not now. Stay with me for now. Yeah, I kind of assume you have watched it because it came out in, February 2017. So yeah, I don't know anyone who hasn't watched it. But anyway, all those theories are there. I'm going to stick to what's on the page. The first thing Littlefinger does here is drive the point home. The point that he has men practically everywhere. So like, Mr. White in the Quantum of Solace. We have people everywhere. So what he does is, to prove his point, he calls this Oswell guy, who looked terribly familiar, I must say. Oi, Oswell, come over here. Let's take a look at you. Because, yeah, it's finally revealed that Oswell, Sir Oswell now, I will have you know, is none other than Senor Papa Kettleblack, the Kettleblack patriarch, whose three sons, Huey, Dewey, and Louis Kettleblack, better known as Osmond, Osney, and Osfrid, have all taken key positions in the Red Keep, revealing that they have always been on Littlefinger's payroll. I mean, at first, Tyrion thought they were his men, considering he was paying them. But then Varys burst that bubble, revealing that they were in fact loyal to Cersei. And now we find out that no, even that is not strictly true, because it's in fact Lord Baelish they actually report to. Although, if you ask me, it seems to me that they have a pretty sweet deal going, these three blokes, because getting 3 salaries each in exchange for informing their paymasters on each other's whereabouts, plans, intentions, all in secret. Yeah, and by the way, it's okay if you get them all confused, Osmond, Osney, Osfrid, they were created to be confused, mixed up with one another. You'll never, I personally have never seen a reader going, yeah, you know what, Osney is a bit of a, treacherous guy, but Osfrid does have his redeeming qualities. No. They're all the same. They're interchangeable. Except that only Osmond is now a member of the Kingsguard. There. So now you know. You already knew that, but there you go. Anyway, so then Peter dismisses Sansa's question that one of the Kettleblacks might have poisoned the chalice. She still wants to get to the bottom of this. Because she thought, maybe, given his location, he was Osmond, he was near Joffrey the whole time in the capacity of Kingsguard. So maybe, was it him? No. And this is where Littlefinger's non-revelation is dropped. I say non-revelation because it's simply a question. Did anyone, dear Sansa, come and fumble with that famous silver hairnet you were wearing? And this, if I remember correctly, this is where Preston Jacobs picks on how this dialogue unfolds, to point out that, but Littlefinger never explicitly mentions Lady Olenna. It's Sansa who blurts her name out, which really, it's not even her name. She just goes, Oh, no way! And to think that she was going to take me to High Garden. There. So that's what she says. And from that, Preston Jacobs sort of builds his theory that Littlefinger had no idea that it was Lady Olenna who plucked the poison gem and dunked it into Joffrey's wine. He only just found out now because Sansa said it, you see? Which, okay. But if you buy into that, then who? I mean, Littlefinger did know that someone was going to do all that. Does this mean, fumbling with Sansa's hairnet, does this mean that he was expecting someone else to come and pluck the amethyst and use it to poison Tyrion and not Joffrey? And how did the Lady Olenna, come on. And then this hypothetical character, on Littlefinger's actual payroll, upon seeing Olenna stealing the poison amethyst, did he just go, oh no, gosh darn it, blast it, I was supposed to do that. Oh, now the whole plan is ruined. Oh, well, la-di-da. Might as well get wasted. I don't know. I think this theory, it's all a bit hard to defend, to argue. Okay, before I forget, Preston Jacobs also points out that the only person mentioning poison is in fact Sansa. I don't know, I guess pointing to the fact that poison wasn't even Littlefinger's weapon. I honestly don't remember if that's the conclusion he draws, but there you go. The good old trope, innit? Yeah, in the words of Laurence Olivier. Oh, come now, Inspector. You can't pull that old one on me. Garrotted, sir? May I ask how you knew her ladyship had been garrotted? Why, I never mentioned the word garrotted. It's a Laurence Olivier's line in that great film with Michael Caine. What's it called? It'll come back to me at some point. Anyway, as I said, I, for one, am going to stick to what's on the page from now, all right? So yeah, we find out that it was Littlefinger who spread news among the Tyrell officers that Joffrey was, well, bad news. And presto, a plan was hatched involving taking Joffrey out of the picture and Marjorie marrying Tommen, who's only a boy of 8. The appendix to this book informs us. But there you go. And then at which point Littlefinger just went, oh, well, looks like you might need some of the old strangler poison, Lady Olenna. And I happen to know just the person who can supply it for you. At the wedding, huh? What better opportunity? No, really, but yeah, how do you broach such a subject? Imagine this, Littlefinger, with the Tyrell family over breakfast. Hi, yeah, sorry, yeah, I couldn't help but over here. Did I misunderstand, or are you currently discussing the best way to murder the current king? No, that's all right, you can tell me. I'm on board, you see. In fact, I think I can help, tapping the tip of his nose with his finger, with his little finger. And I don't know, dear listener, I guess there's a good reason why these plots and conspiracies all happen off-screen in these books, because, they would be impossible to write, or very hard. Anyway, moving on. Let's say no more about that and turn a new leaf, because the second half of this chapter takes place 8 days later and sees the arrival of, drumroll, Lysa Tully Arryn. And she's mental. But all in due time. First off, the description George gives us is not particularly flattering. Listen to this. Thank God for bookmarks. Lysa, did I call her Lisa? Lysa was 2 years younger than Mother, from Sansa's mother. But this woman looked 10 years older. Thick auburn tresses fell down past her waist, but beneath the costly velvet gown and jeweled bodice, her body sagged and bulged. Her face was pink and painted, her breasts heavy. My knees are bent, like Life of Brian. Her limbs were thick. She was taller than Littlefinger and heavier, nor did she know any grace in the clumsy way she climbed down off her horse. Nice. See what I mean? Anyway, so as per plan, Peter introduces Sansa to her, sticking to the story. Look what I found, Liza. Her name is Elaine, and she's my illegitimate daughter. I just found out. Can we keep her? Huh? In the Eyrie? Liza's a bit, but that's all right. First thing first, she wants to get married, like, immediately. She brought the septon, the mead for the feast, the singer, a mysterious singer. Let me read that. A handsome singer with a wisp of moustache and long sandy curls. And that's how George reintroduces him to us. We've met him before, of course, but let's zoom in on Littlefinger's disappointed face right now, because of course he would have preferred an official wedding, with the whole court in the Vale bearing witness, given that he expects to be viewed as an upstart, and a gold digger by all those Royces and Hunters and Corbrays in the Vale. Some of them are actually Liza's suitors. So let's just say that public opinion over there isn't exactly in Peter's favor, and he knows it. But yeah, Liza puts her callous foot down. She wants to get married now and consummate ASAP, legitimately though, and she intends to scream. All in that order. So, wedding, vows, a feast with that mead and quail, venison, boar. George is quite restrained here with his food porn. But you've got to admit, the food brought over by Liza is way better quality than what was it again? Seagull eggs and seaweed soup. So the septon officiates, the singer sings, the bedding ceremony can begin as per tradition. And Sansa. She's thinking, okay, I'm glad I was spared that, the bedding ritual, of being undressed on our way to the bedchamber. I'm glad I was spared that at my wedding, being undressed by the groom's mates and the bridesmaids on the way to the bedchamber. Still, it must be sweet to be undressed by friends for a man who loves you, which is exactly what's going on here, right? And it's funny how Sansa, even as her thoughts turn to Tyrion, somehow manages to think of Sandor Clegane once again. How he, because he's thinking of Sandor, the Hound, and how he told her that they're all liars. These highborn people are all liars. Well, technically, Sandor is also, isn't he? Highborn. He's got, he's got a sigil and everything. It's got a business card. Oh, it's got a business card. Oh, that's a big achievement. Award yourself 5 points if you caught that reference. No, he told her, oh, these guys are all liars, especially knights. Oh, I hate a lot of them. And you're so naive. This is still Sandor, speaking to Sansa in Sansa's flashback that's playing in her brains right now. And then she's thinking, oh, Sandor, I wonder what he's doing right now. Has he found happiness, etc., etc.? I wonder. And George R. R. Martin has assured us, readers, in interviews and whatnot, that this bizarre link between Sansa and Sandor, the Sansdor, that's what I'm going to call it now, the Sansdor. And if no other fan has come up with that term, I'm calling it. You heard it here first. Anyway, so yeah, George has assured us, readers, that the Sansdor will turn out to be important. That kiss that she might or might not have given him in The Winds of Winter, which will never get published, so you'll never really find out how important this thing actually is. Anyway, be it as it may, true to her word, behind closed doors, Liza and Peter get down to business, and Liza screams on top of her lungs. She can be heard from 2 floors below. She screams Peter's name, then various bits of instructions, harder, faster, right there, right here. Yeah, we can imagine her. We can imagine her pointing in various directions because she goes over here. No, right there. I'm being whimsical. Anyway, so it's revealed that the singer is none other than Marillion, who hasn't actually moved from the Eyrie since book 1, Game of Thrones, Tyrion 5. That's right, we first encountered him at the Crossroads Inn in a Game of Thrones, Catelyn 5, where he somehow managed to tag along with Catelyn's traveling party all the way to the Vale, with Tyrion held captive. And the way he did that was by claiming to be good friends to Catelyn's brother Edmure, which we know now was clearly a lie, and Catelyn didn't buy it for a minute because of what we found out in this very book from Tom of 7, in Area 4, the whole floppy fish song story. I won't linger on that here. Be it as it may, Marillion, charming social climber that he is, and skillful liar, managed to find himself a post as resident singer in the Eyrie, apparently. And in this chapter, he wastes no time being a creep to Sansa, Elaine, henceforth, and try to have non-consensual intercourse with her. Yeah, Sansa, or Elaine, I will remind you, is a girl of 13, so yeah. Because she is not a Hollywood movie character, she doesn't respond by kicking Marillion in the nuts, lifting him up, and mopping the floor with him, showing incredible martial arts skills that she never trained for, all the while screaming to the creep, "You see?" while she's kicking him in the nuts. "This is what happens when you mess with a strong female character. There, take that, Marillion, if that is indeed your name." No, because she's not a Hollywood character, she doesn't do any of that. But you'll be pleased to know that she's rescued. Oh, rescued. Oh, the damsel in distress topic. Oh my God, so problematic. Gender stereotype, problematic, anyone? Hello? Okay, stop, snap out of it. Yeah, so she's rescued by Lothar Brune, who gets my standing ovation. I just have to read you the dialogue here. Allow me. "Singer," a rough voice said. "Best go if you want to sing again." The light was dim, but Sansa saw a faint glimmer of a blade. The singer saw it too. "Find your own wench." The knife flashed, and he cried out, "Oh, you cut me!" "I'll do worse if you don't go." And as quick as that, Marillion was gone. Wow, clap, clap, clap. Well done, Lothar. And once again, having met a rescuer, Sansa's thoughts focus on the Hound for the second time in like half an hour in universe. What's going on here, George? I mean, of course, we do remember that Sandor did rescue Sansa from the King's Landing riots, but still. That same night, Elaine has, surprise, surprise, some very messed up dreams, a mix of red and purple weddings, which I know she witnessed neither because she fled the minute she saw Joffrey choking, so she didn't really, but as per plan. But you know how it is. She even dreams of Tyrion wanting to have his wicked ways with her. But that's when she's awakened by Grizzle, who's bringing up breakfast, for everybody, and she informs Elaine that she's wanted in Peter's and Lysa's bedchamber. And that's where she finds out from Peter that Lysa has been told of her real identity, presumably in one of his pillow talk scenes with her, happened off screen, and that it's now time to leave for the Eyrie. And on that note, he puts his boots on, and off he goes, leaving Elaine alone with Aunt Lysa. And Lysa is all super practical immediately. She goes, "Oh, you do look like your mom, Catelyn." "Yeah, no, I don't mean that as flattery." "We'll have to dye your hair, love, because if we want you to be really incognito, you know what I mean? That hair would give you away. We'll give you a makeover, because I don't know if you've noticed, but I've managed to keep the Vale out of all these wars all this time. We're neutral, we're impregnable. We're wealthy, we're neutral. We're kind of like Switzerland here in the Erie. And all for my son's safety, all right? So the last thing we want is for Tywin Lannister to get all pissed off at us for holding his daughter-in-law because you married Tyrion, didn't you? Which kind of makes sense, I suppose, Lysa worrying about that. Because, yeah, even though Sansa Lane did inform Littlefinger that Tyrion has been taken into custody, she heard it from Dontos, and that what awaits Tyrion, if he's lucky, is a life of military service in the Wall with the Night's Watch. And we can assume, or possibly he'll be hanged, more likely. We can assume that Lysa is privy to all that info as well. Sansa Stark, as a brand, especially as a widow, still constitutes a major asset for the Lannisters because she's now heir to Winterfell, with Robb dead, as well as now part of the Lannisters' extended family, unless Robb's will, but we won't talk about that now. Anyway, Lysa goes on and on. Yeah, me too, you know. I was also married to a man I didn't love. Yeah, you. John Arryn was older than my dad, and his breath stank of cheese. It's Peter I've always loved, you know, because he's always chewing on mint leaves and his breath is always fresh. I've always loved him since we were kids and all that, you know. See, what happened was, yeah, that John gave Peter the customs for Gulltown, where Elaine is supposed to have been born, just to please me. But when Littlefinger increased the income of the Gulltown customs incomes tenfold, because he's like super smart, you know, my lord husband saw how clever he was and gave him other appointments. Even brought him to King's Landing to be master of coin. And this is the piece of the puzzle we were missing from Littlefinger's origin story, because this makes me think about a couple of things. Okay, Littlefinger's career owes a lot more to Lysa's infatuation, long-term crush type thing than we initially thought. The schemy little bastard managed to manipulate Lysa into basically giving him his first big break. And B, if Littlefinger is so clever in generating income, providing that Lysa is a reliable narrator, why did Tyrion's last comment on Littlefinger's accountancy book, last time he had a chance to see them, why did Tyrion's comment point to how most of all that money on the ledger was, well, just on the ledger, really, because with the strong implication that the crown was in fact totally and hopelessly in debt, which we indeed learned in Eddard IV, you know, that small council meeting. And it was all blamed on Robert. Come on. Does that mean that Gulltown's revenues are all just as fictional, and that house of cards, that bubble, is bound to burst sooner or later, or does that, or rather, that Littlefinger has been driving the crown into debt on purpose? We'll put a pin on that for now. And also another one of those of John Arryn's shortcoming. George leads us to believe, and see if you spot the irony here. One of John's shortcomings was that in his old age, the seed was not strong, as Lysa is now telling Sansa. Ha! See what George has done? The irony, considering that John's marriage to Lysa resulted in 2 stillbirths and 4 miscarriages. Holy crap! Before the couple finally conceived Robert, sweet Robin, whatever, sweet Robert, who isn't exactly the fittest boy in the realm, both physically and mentally. When Eddard Stark was given that clue by Maester Pycelle, you know, that John's final words on his deathbed were indeed, "The seed is strong," Ned must have thought, yeah, right, I doubt he was talking about his own seed, you know what I mean? Now, we know, of course, that this was referred to one of the mysteries that slowly unfolds in Book 1, leading us to discover that Robert Baratheon was not Joffrey's father, or Myrcella's father, or Tommen's father. You know, that part of Game of Thrones where Ned does his film noir kind of private detective thing. He turns into a bit of a sleuth. Oh, that's it. That Sleuth. That's the film with Laurence Olivier and Michael Caine. Highly recommended. The only film that can be spoiled by simply revealing how many characters there are. So I won't do that. Based on a play written by an author whose name escapes me now. He's buried out there in Highgate Cemetery, London, just within walking distance to the place where they laid to rest Douglas Adam of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy fame. Yeah. Yes, I'm still digressing. I know. Okay, let's get back to track. No, actually, no. I'm not even done digressing yet, because allow me a little nitpick that you can hopefully help me resolve. Still to do with the old CD Strong line. In Eddard 5, Pycelle informs Ned that Jon Arryn has uttered the words, "The seed is strong," to both the king and the queen. Here's the quote. Just before he closed his eyes for the last time, he whispered something to the king and his lady wife, a blessing for his son. "The seed is strong," he said. However, a while later, in the same chapter, Ned asks, "You mentioned that the king was at Lord Arryn's bedside when he died. I wonder, was the queen with him?" To which Pycelle replies, "Why, no," Pycelle said. "She and the children were making the journey to Castle Rock in company with her father." So, was Cersei present or not? I don't know. Maybe it's me. I'm confused, but let me know. Anyway, back to the story. Here we have it confirmed that Lysa has some pretty weird mood swings, you know. First, she's in tears and she's all like, "Oh, your poor mother killed like that at that wedding. But that's all right. We have each other now. Give us a kiss, love. Give us a kiss." And all of a sudden, she grabs her wrist and turns all menacing like, "Tell me if you're pregnant. I need to know." "We can't have that. Don't you dare lie to me. I will know if you're lying." But Sansa, we can call her Sansa for now because, you know, her identity is no secret to Lysa. Sansa manages to sort of tell the truth. She goes, "Yeah, no, ouch, Aunt Lysa. Tyrion never touched me because, ouch, my wrist. No, busy as he was, you know, having a blast with his sex workers." Of course he was. Oh, wretched little creature. Wish I had him plunged to his death when I had the chance. You know, this is still Lysa. Back in the Eyrie, you see, we have this really cool architectural feature. We call it the Moon Door. Oh, you love it. I love it. And this is where we plunge people to their death. It's one of our dinner time pastimes. So anyway, yeah, and then she goes on and on, you know, Lysa. First, she reminds us that Hoster Tully's brother, you know, the Bryndon Tully, aka the Blackfish, he left the Gate of the Moon at the base of the mountain, and because he used to be the knight in charge down there. But he followed Catelyn to good old River Run. And now the mountain clans are getting bolder. Hey, they're a bit bold. Yeah, I know. Terrible accent, I know. You know, bold, which is Irish for they're nasty sons of bitches. You know, that's, yeah. The Tullys are Irish. Of course they're Irish. There's no way the Tullys aren't Irish. I mean, look at the actors that were cast to play them in the HBO TV series. Anyway, yeah, so the mountain clans have been getting bolder. They're a bit bold. And now they have proper weapons and armor. And for that, too, you have Tyrion to thank. But that's all right, Lysa informs us, because now Peter is my hubby now. I'll make him Lord Protector of the Vale. What could possibly go wrong? That little manipulative social climber known as Peter Baelish. Clever little bastard, eh? Still, Lord Protector or Defender of the Vale, but not Warden of the East, because in an almost completely forgotten plot, that title was randomly given to Jaime Lannister by King Robert back in Eddard II. I'm just saying, although really it's more of an honorary title, or it would be in times of peace. Or so Ned told us way back in Eddard I. Except that we are not exactly in times of peace right now, are we? Still one king on the chessboard. Anyway, here's another thing to put a pin on for now, I suppose. What Lysa says next is what interests me right now, because it's sort of enigmatic, and I don't know whether it qualifies as one of George R. R. Martin's famous, threefold revelations, or more like a red herring, what do you call it, a misdirection. First, Lysa reminds us that Joffrey was a bit naughty. Lysa knew him well, as we would imagine, given that they all lived at court since Jon Arryn's nomination as Hand to the King. And for the last 6 years of that idyllic period leading to Jon Arryn's death, little Robert was also there. And apparently, Joffrey used to bully the crap out of him. Who would have thought? But listen to what she says next. A man will tell you that poison is dishonorable, but a woman's honor is different. The mother shaped us to protect our children, and our only dishonor is in failure to do that. You'll know that when you have a child. Whoa, could that possibly mean that? Could Lysa possibly mean that? Is that supposed to be to somehow imply that Lysa Tully / Arryn employed poison for the ultimate purpose of protecting her son Robert? And this right in the middle of a conversation about Joffrey's death from poison? Was Lysa somehow involved? Or, I promised you no spoilers, but let me just remind you that throughout A Game of Thrones, a big deal is made out of where little Robert Arryn was supposed to be reared, fostered. With his mother, Lysa, or fostered with Tywin at Casterly Rock? Yes, that is what we know. And the decision was kind of made between King Robert and Tywin Lannister after Jon Arryn's death. Except that at that point, Lysa just went, oh no, you don't, and then because she would have none of that and fled to the Eyrie with her son Robert. So that never happened, and that is the part that everyone remembers. But little is said about another plan that was made to have little Robert fostered away from his mum, and that plan was conceived by Jon Arryn himself, if a certain potboy is to be believed. Okay, let me recap here. You will remember that at some point in Eddard VI, during his investigations, some kitchen potboy provides Ned with a lot of kitchen quiches. Yeah, he gives him quiches as well, but he gives him a lot of kitchen gossip. Among them, the fact that Jon Arryn planned to have Robert fostered with Stannis Baratheon on Dragonstone. Huh? How about that? And that's actually confirmed later on in Catelyn 7, when Catelyn arrives at the Eyrie. Yeah. And she has this interesting conversation with Maester Colemon, the resident maester at House Arryn. Let me read you this bit. Thank God for bookmarks. The boy is utterly without discipline. He will never be strong enough to rule unless he is taken away from his mother for a time. This is Catelyn talking about Robert Arryn. But listen to what follows. His Lord Father, John, agreed with you, said a voice at her elbow. She turned to behold Maester Colemon, a cup of wine in his hand. He was planning to send the boy to Dragonstone for fostering, Oh, but I'm speaking out of turn. The apple of his throat bobbed anxiously beneath the loose maester's chain. I fear I have had too much of Lord Hunter's excellent wine. The prospect of bloodshed has my nerves all afray. You are mistaken, Maester, Catelyn said. It was Casterly Rock, not Dragonstone, and those arrangements were made after that Hand's death. without my sister's consent. The maester's head jerked so vigorously, at the end of his absurdly long neck that he looked half a puppet himself. No, begging your forgiveness, my lady, but it was Lord John who... And Maester Coleman never gets to finish the sentence because a bell tolls somewhere. But it seems clear enough that while he was still alive, John Arryn was planning to take his son Robert away from Lysa to have him reared, fostered by Stannis on Dragonstone. Of course, John Arryn's death put a stop to that, and then other plans were made. Lysa fled, yada yada yada, and you know the rest. See, I did say no spoilers, but I also said I reserve the right to look backward, if not ahead, and that's precisely what I did. You see? Right, anyway, back to the present time. This is where Lysa drops the bomb. That's right, Sansita. The plan is to have you marry my son Robert. Huh? How would you like that? That's what I meant when I said you'll know when you have kids of your own. And Sansa is all like, why, it's like a dream come true. But what she's really thinking is like, oh, God, is there anyone in the realm who is not planning to have me marry someone so they can get their hands on Winterfell? And I can't help but notice how George R. R. Martin enjoys being so cruel to Sansa, because like pulling the wings of flies. Because, I mean, at the beginning she was set up as this airy-fairy girl who dreamed of chivalrous knights fighting in tourneys, idealized, and how she would eventually marry one of those knights, only to show her one suitor after another, each with some qualities that would make them so remotely, literally light years away from being the knights she reads about in novels, like Willas Tyrell, Tyrion Lannister, and now Robert Arryn. So anyway, Lysa figures Tyrion is either going to be put to death or will be allowed to take the black because he's highborn, and there are different privileges for those people. But in either case, his marriage to Sansa will be null and void. So there. And here Lysa is so delusional as to think that the seed is strong, the quote, was actually referred to the Arryn seed. And little Robert, because she goes, yeah, Robert will give you strong and healthy kids. Don't you worry about that. Trouble is, he has weak eyes, but he loves to be read to. He likes stories about animals the best. Do you know the little song about the chicken who dressed as a fox? Yeah, I sing him that all the time. He never grows tired of it. So, you'll be singing that to your husband. How would you like that? Also, he likes to play hop frog. I'm reading here literally from the text. He likes to play hop frog and spin the word and come into my castle, but you must always let him win. That's only proper, don't you think? He's the Lord of the Eyrie, after all. You must never forget that. You are well born, and the Starks of Winterfell were always proud, but Winterfell has fallen, and you are really just a beggar now, so put that pride aside. Gratitude will better become you in your present circumstances. Yes, and obedience. My son will have a grateful and obedient wife. Oh, God, this sounds like hell, Sansa. And besides, if we have learned anything from this series, is that a plan, once announced, is always accomplished. Yeah, right? Just like this wedding and, Sansa's future life as little Robert Arryn's wife. Oh dear, oh dear. Okay, anyway, so if you made it this far, why? Thank you for your attention and patience and all that. And well done. I hope you had as much fun as I did. And if you enjoy this sort of content, don't forget to do all of the things that regular people do under such circumstances. And I look forward to speaking to you again soon. This is the end of the chapter. Go do something else. Go pick up that Storm of Swords book and read the next chapter. And I'll look forward to reading you reading that chapter and commenting on it soon enough. All the best. In the meantime, ciao.